Now the latest ITV News in London.
Tonight, critical concerns in critical care. Staff raise red flags at one of London's top hospitals. Almost everyone who responded to a union survey at St Thomas's Hospital said the intensive care unit felt unsafe.
If we don't plan now how to resource these environments properly, I really fear that there could be disasters ahead.
Also ahead, the Met Commissioner gives more details about an independent review into her force and insists London is safe for women.
I'm just getting on with my job. I think it's very important that after the terrible events of the last few days, that people see that I'm doing my job.
The urgent call for blood plasma donors to help children like Zaid, and
I'm incredibly hot and sticky here at London Zoo's brand new exhibit. In fact, I think I might have found where our summer went. Anyway, the stars of the show just over here are having a fantastic feast.
Good evening. Intensive care units are the last line of defence in the fight against COVID, but ITV News can reveal the crisis facing critical care at one of the capital's biggest hospitals. 98% of the nurses surveyed working in St Thomas's intensive care unit said they are so understaffed patients could be at risk. Even more, 100% told the union Unite the pressure is so great that understaffing is affecting their own well-being. There are, said one, disasters ahead. Sam Holder has more.
You can't tell it from the outside, but inside the critical care unit at St Thomas's Hospital, nurses paint scenes of near unbearable understaffing. This is how one senior nurse describes it. She's hiding her identity.
It's awful. It's absolutely awful. The anxiety you have before your shifts. You kind of feel demoralised because you know you've given bad care. Things getting missed, mistakes happening. Blood specimens may get incorrectly labelled and they go to the labs with the wrong patient details.
A survey by Unite found 98% of critical care nurses at St Thomas's believe their ICU is unsafe due to understaffing. 100%, all of them, say it's affecting their mental health. Bear in mind, this is before the winter months. Huge surges in COVID and flu cases are expected. The NHS is working on its biggest ever flu jab drive. Dave is a Unite representative and works in the hospital's critical care unit.
The survey, I think, speaks for itself. These are nearly 200 professionals that are saying that they feel unsafe on their working environment. If we don't plan now how to resource these environments properly and manage the workload that's being imposed upon them, I really fear that there could be disasters ahead.
St Thomas's is one of London's most famous, most important hospitals. The Prime Minister was treated by the critical care team when he caught COVID 18 months ago. Well, nobody from Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust would speak to us today, but they strongly deny the critical care units here are unsafe. They say survival rates are among the best in the country and that they are investing in recruiting more nurses. They also say that they provide extensive health and well-being support for current staff. The lead nurse I spoke to says the trust is in denial.
What do you call safety? Do you call safety someone who survived, but they survived with a pressure sore? Or somebody who survived having acquired infections?
How long can you keep going like this?
I look for a new job every day.
So you'd like to leave nursing altogether?
Yeah, absolutely.
Unite say more than 110 intensive care nurses have left the hospital in 7 months. They say better wages are needed to attract staff and keep senior ones.
So Sam, just how serious is the situation at St Thomas's right now?
Well, Duncan, the first thing we have to point out is that this survey doesn't represent all staff. There are about 200 nurses who responded. And we also have to point out that the NHS doesn't give us figures on the number of patients in critical care or the number of staff. But this will help give some context. At the peak of the pandemic, there were 169 COVID patients on ventilators at St Thomas's. At the moment, there are only 30 and staff are already struggling. That's why there's so much concern about the winter months, where we will almost certainly see a massive rise in flu and COVID cases. What's also worrying the nurses I spoke to is the fact that they're having to do something called doubling up. That means looking after 2 patients at once instead of 1. So they can't give their undivided attention. And they say that means they might miss things and create extra risk. Guy's and St Thomas's NHS Trust says that doubling up does happen, but it's only required on occasions to manage short-term staffing pressures. OK, Sam, thank you. Well, we're joined now by Victoria Hornby, who is Chief Executive of Mental Health Innovations based in Shepherd's Bush. Her charity is behind a service called Shout, which is the UK's first 24/7 crisis text service. And she's been nominated as one of this year's Women of the Year for the work she's overseen during the pandemic. Welcome to you, Victoria. First of all, your charity set up a specific helpline, didn't it, for members of the NHS? The kinds of calls you're getting, how reflective are they of the things we've been hearing from St Thomas's?
So we set up the frontline service about early April, in the first April of the pandemic, so in 2020. And we get about 50 messages a day for support, and about 42% of people who text us through our frontline service or who tell us that they are frontline NHS workers talk to us about anxiety. So it's similar. We don't really often get into what exactly is driving that anxiety, but people contact us in order to be able to find a calmer place and think about some positive steps forward.
What's changed about the kind of support people have been asking for as the pandemic has progressed?
So early in the pandemic, I think we've had a lot of conversations which were about COVID. So they were about people being separated from their families. So, nurses, doctors, hospital staff, social care staff who were having to isolate from their families and finding that very difficult and obviously worried themselves about COVID and catching COVID. We now see very little conversation actually about COVID. It tends to be more about the situation that people find themselves in. So that's pressure of work, anxiety about sort of managing the workload. And of course, for many NHS staff in particular, once the COVID spikes are over, then there's a huge backlog of other people to look after. So it's not surprising that anxiety is something which a lot of people are facing.
What are you expecting, what are you fearing as we head towards winter and the pressures on people's mental health?
So winter is often more difficult, and I think there are lots of reports in the news about the pressures that are coming for the NHS. I would say that we certainly see increases in texters to our service, people contacting our service around news events. So the more there is in the news, the more that's likely to lead to people feeling uncomfortable or worried about the future. So we are expecting an increase, but we have 2,500 volunteers and a very large clinical staff ready to support people. So we would really encourage people to text Frontline to 85258 if they do feel they need help and support. We're there for them 24/7.
And Victoria, you've been nominated as a Woman of the Year for the work you've done. That must be lovely recognition for you and your team.
Yes, I think definitely much more recognition for my team. We run a 24-hour-a-day service. We respond to up to 1,500 requests for support every day. We have, as I said before, 2,500 volunteers. So it's very much a recognition of them.
OK, Victoria, congratulations and thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
And if you'd like to speak to someone about stress, anxiety or mental health worries, just to give you that number that Victoria gave there for Shout Crisis, they're on 85258. Now, 7 months after Sarah Everard's murder by a serving Met police officer, the Forces Commissioner has announced who will lead a review into its culture and standards. That person is Baroness Casey of Blackstock. She's a crossbench peer in the House of Lords, as well as an independent advisor on social welfare and a former government official. Dame Cressida Dick described her appointment as an important step in the Met's journey to rebuild public trust. Well, Antoine Allen has been speaking to the Met Commissioner and joins us now from New Scotland Yard. Antoine, what else did the Commissioner have to say?
Well, after Wayne Couzens was jailed for the murder of Sarah Everard, there's been an increasing pressure on the Met and Dame Cressida Dick. She's recently given a contract extension, but there is sources that say that her relationship with the Home Secretary is one that's not easy. Today's announcement that Baroness Casey of Blackstock will be leading that review will hopefully help with that, but Cressida told me at Battersea Park that she knows she needs to regain the trust of Londoners.
For some people, there has been a break in that bond of trust, and people's confidence is less high than it should be because of the killing of Sarah Everard by a serving police officer and some other events. Hence, the independent review and a series of other measures to improve people's confidence.
In terms of the review and your own position, do you feel like you have the support of the Home Secretary?
So the Home Secretary has said that she supports me. I've had my contract renewed. I've also had public support from the Prime Minister and the Mayor. I'm just getting on with my job. I think it's very important that after the terrible events of the last few days, that people see that I'm doing my job and taking a number of measures to improve the Met and improve people's trust in us.
Well, I spoke to Dame Cressida Dick and I asked her about the conditions of that contract, but she would not give a clear answer. But what was clear is that she needs to regain the trust of Londoners and get them to once again be faithful and trusting when it comes to calling the police and telling them about the problems that they have. She's been in the job since 2017, so she believes she's still the right person to lead the Met forward.
Antoine at New Scotland Yard, thank you very much. James Brokenshire, the MP for Old Bexley and Sidcup, has died from cancer at the age of 53. He rose through the ranks of the Conservative Party, holding cabinet positions during Theresa May's time as Prime Minister. Today, she described him as an outstanding public servant, a talented minister and a loyal friend. And this evening, those sentiments were echoed by those who knew him best in his constituency. Charlotte Cross remembers an MP who was defined by more than just his politics.
One of the leading lights of the new intake. Remember that name, Brokenshire. He's going to be a star in the future.
So said senior Conservative MP David Davis back in 2007. And what a prediction that turned out to be.
You could tell from the beginning that this was someone who had real political instincts and beliefs and values. He was going to stick to them and he was going to persevere.
Elected first for Hornchurch and then to Old Bexley and Sidcup, James Brokenshire rose quickly through the ranks. In 2016, then Prime Minister Theresa May appointed him as Secretary of State for Northern Ireland and then in 2018 as Housing Secretary, during which time he oversaw the controversial early stages of the Grenfell inquiry and the subsequent battle over cladding. And he served the current government too. Boris Johnson had him as Security Minister. They were among the first to pay tribute to him today. Mrs May called him an outstanding public servant, a talented minister and a loyal friend. And Mr Johnson said he was the nicest, kindest and most unassuming of politicians. He added, "I know how much he cared for the interests of his Bexley constituents."
We met James when the family was in crisis.
Graham Brown's daughter Charlotte died in a speedboat crash in the Thames in 2015. It was James Brokenshire as their constituency MP who fought alongside them in their battle to bring the man responsible to justice.
Our family owe him a great gratitude of debt and we just say thank you. And just to say my heart goes out to his wife and family and I wish them all the best. And my family will ever be indebted to his family. It's just an amazing man and it's such a sad loss.
Sentiments echoed by those who worked with him closely.
He was someone who I regarded as not just my boss, but a very close friend, and it was the honour of my life to work for him. He was someone who was incredibly dedicated, thoughtful, kind. He didn't take himself too seriously, but he took the work he did very seriously indeed. And I've lost a friend, and the country has lost an outstanding politician.
He stepped down from government in January after his lung cancer returned. His family said he was taken to hospital on Sunday as his condition quickly deteriorated, and he died with his loved ones at his side.
James Brokenshire, who has died at the age of 53. Still to come, an urgent call from Great Ormond Street Hospital for more of us to donate our blood plasma. And slowly does it, the giant tortoise is almost ready for a big reveal at London Zoo. But first, people in Croydon have voted to change the way their council is run after a string of recent problems. A referendum held yesterday came out firmly in favour of creating an elected mayor. Martin Stew has been to find out what difference it will make.
This bankrupt borough needs strong leadership to balance the books. This morning's mayoral referendum results confirm the people of Croydon want a change.
4 out of 5 of the 21% of people who voted chose to switch from the current system, where you have councillors electing their leader, to one where people here in the borough get to choose a directly elected mayor.
Well, I'm very pleased with the reaction.
Jerry Meredith Smith has been campaigning for the change for 2.5 years.
It's a big victory for common sense and for the people to make a better town again and to work together to recover, because we are in a dreadful mess.
In November last year, the council admitted it was bust. An auditor's report highlighted a collective corporate blindness as the money ran out. To balance the books, £38 million of cuts are planned this year.
£500,000 worth is going to come out of the voluntary sector, and people like these are just going to lose all of their council funding.
Journalist Stephen Downs has been following the story for years.
220,000 people yesterday didn't even bother to vote. The 57,000 people who did vote have voted for a change. But it is sort of moving the deck chairs, not on a ship that's about to sink, but a ship that sank last year.
The mayor will have executive control over big decisions, with 2/3 of councillors needed to veto their plans.
Do you think it'll make a change?
No, it won't. That wage needs to be somewhere else.
Businesses are closed. You can see most businesses are closed here because of COVID. So any mayor that has to come on in this episode has to be very strong.
I don't think nothing's going to change. The poor are going to get poorer and the rich are going to get richer. That's what I believe.
Where does the kind of balance of power lie?
Labour politician Hamida Ali had opposed the plans. She'll lose the council leader job she's had for 10 months when the mayor is elected.
Last night was not about which party, which person. It was about listening to them about what they want to see about how their council is run.
Well, they want change, don't they?
They were really very clear, weren't they? You know, they want a mayor that they choose, and that's what we must listen to. That's what we must honour.
Elections will take place in May. Martin Stew, ITV News.
Protesters from Insulate Britain blocked a junction of the M25 again today and a major road in central London. The climate change activists said about 40 people were involved in what was its 12th day of protests over the last 4 weeks. This was Old Street roundabout, where police arrested 19 activists. Officers held a further 16 at the motorway demonstration. Residents in thousands of homes in Surrey and Kent are being advised to boil their water because it could be contaminated with E. coli. SES Water said the issue was discovered during routine tests and it's working hard to rectify the situation. Hospitals, including Great Ormond Street, have made an urgent appeal for blood plasma donations. They're desperately needed in the capital. Donation centres here are only a quarter full each day. As Sangeeta Kandola reports, the plasma is used to make medicines for people with rare immune diseases.
7-year-old Zaid is a regular at Great Ormond Street Hospital. He and his brothers have a genetic condition, which means they can't produce antibodies on their own. So every month he needs an infusion of plasma to keep him healthy.
Without treatment, the boys would be more prone to infection. So without antibodies, we'd all be prone to infection. So without it, they wouldn't be able to live as normal life as they are. You know, it's life-giving for my children. You know, without it, I just wouldn't have the reassurance. Without it, I'd be worried. Without it, would be in and out of hospital more often.
Plasma is used to make a medicine called immunoglobulin. There had been a ban on donations here in the UK for 20 years due to fears over mad cow disease, which meant the NHS and children like Zaid had to rely on imports. But due to a drop in global donations due to the pandemic, supplies had started to dwindle. And despite the British ban being lifted in February, they need more people to come forward to make up the shortfall.
It's been a really big shortage, which has been a real worry for us
treating these children. There's a big shortage because it's just not enough supply of immunoglobulin. So it's really important to have more donors coming out to donate.
The Plasma Donation Centre in Twickenham is one of 3 in London. But with fewer than a third of appointments being filled, they urgently need more people like Michael to come forward.
To me, it should be buzzing, really. There'd be a lot more people, you know. I'm like 3/4 of an hour away. So, you know, I don't mind coming.
Look at the materials, see if you measure up to the height and weight requirements and the medical requirements, and just give it a go, please. We just need to fill those beds, get the plasma collected, and within a year or 2 we should be self-sustainable in the UK, which is what it's all about for us.
There are hundreds of appointments every week sitting empty. The NHS is now hoping the campaign to raise awareness will help fill the seats and help children like Zaid stay fit and well. Sangeeta Kandola, ITV News.
The ITV News continues at 6:30. Here's a look ahead now with Charlene.
Coming up, the country's biggest ever flu vaccine programme. More than 40 million people are eligible for the vaccinations. But will that be enough to curb the threat of COVID and winter flu? Also ahead, fresh concerns from industries over spiralling energy costs. And the hot shot is back. We'll have all the build-up as Emma Raducanu prepares for her first big match since winning the US Open. Join us for those stories and more from 6:30.
Let's get a reminder of our main headlines in London this evening. Almost everyone who responded to a union survey at St Thomas's Hospital said the intensive care unit there felt unsafe. The trust which runs it says it recognises the pressure the current demand places on staff and is investing in recruiting more nurses. And Dame Cressida Dick has told ITV News London she recognises she and her force needs to regain the trust of Londoners. She was speaking as Dame Louise Casey was announced as the woman to lead a review into the Met following Sarah Everard's murder. On to the weather, and Sally is here. Sally, in a moment we're going to be talking about autumnal colours. I'm not impressed so far out east.
No, well, they have been a bit slow, haven't they? Actually, I rung the RHS yesterday. I was sniffing around for a little day out at Wisley. And I said, what's it been like this autumn there? And she said they have been a little bit slow, but fingers crossed they'll catch up. Waiting for a bit of colder weather, I think. But she did say that we've had so much rain that the pumpkin's apparently doing this quite well at the moment. So you'll catch me in a pumpkin field
There's
soon.
a live broadcast coming up.
I know, we're so predictable. Anyway, hopefully the weather on Saturday will be better than it was last Saturday when we got on the wrong bus, had to walk a mile in the rain. Not very happy, it was my birthday, got very wet. Anyway, let's take a look, here we go.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV London weekend weather.
Well, I've been really milking this photo today, taken in Epping Forest, because the fungi just looks incredible. The only worrying thing is something has tried to nibble it, so fingers crossed it's okay. Now, tomorrow we have got possibly a bit of mist and fog first thing in the morning, so be careful of the visibility, but then a much better day than last Saturday where I got soaked. We have hopefully some nice sunny spells. It's going to stay quite mild, but it will cool down into next week. And then as we go from Saturday night into Sunday, just want to show you this. We have got this front sinking south across the country. It's fragmenting and shouldn't really give us too much bother, but probably a bit more cloud Sunday morning and maybe a touch of drizzle as well, improving through the day and high pressure building as we head into Monday. So back to tonight, still a lot of cloud outside this evening. That is going to start to clear overnight to give more of us starry skies as we go through to tomorrow morning. And with those clearer skies, the temperatures will drop down quite cool, particularly in the countryside. The chance of a bit of mist and fog, like I said, tomorrow morning. So watch out if you're driving. But as we get going tomorrow, that mist and fog will start to lift, and we are expecting some decent spells of sunshine as we go through the day. Some nice blue skies. There will be some cloud coming and going, maybe a bit hazy at times as well, more so to the east of London, parts of Essex and Kent. But the temperature's doing really well for the time of year. 18 or 19 degrees are the highs compared to the average for around now, which is usually 15 to 16 degrees. And if you've got plans for tomorrow night, staying pleasant, staying dry, perhaps a bit of evening sunshine as well before it gets dark. Into the outlook, I mentioned Sunday. We could see a bit of a cloudy start, like I said, maybe a bit of drizzle, but improving through the day and some sunny spells for Monday. And if you take a look at the temperatures, look, they're doing quite well, but they do taper off as we head into next week. That is your full forecast for now.
Great Western Railway sponsors the ITV London weekend weather.
That's not too bad at all. Now, you've been to a housewarming party, is that right?
I have, at good old London Zoo. 3 tortoises. They missed the stamp duty cut-off, but they've moved into a new home. It's a bit of a tortoise spa, really. They've got a mud bath, swimming pool, pretty much a cafe.
Lovely.
And yeah, they're having a ball. So I went to go and see them. I forgot how slowly tortoises move. Let's take a look.
Welcome to life in the slow lane, and also to the giant tortoises' new home here at London Zoo.
In order to get to the tortoises, you have to come into this dark chamber, which is meant to be a bit like being inside the egg, which, by the way, is only that big, a tortoise egg. And then you come in, emerging from the egg, into this really lovely, warm, hot, sticky, humid biome. And somewhere, there they are, you can see the tortoises.
Settling in with a nice mud bath and some tasty reeds, these are the giant Galapagos tortoises.
Chris, we've got Dolly, Polly and Priscilla. I mean, they're the Flopsy, Mopsy and Cottontail of the tortoise world, aren't they?
Absolutely. They're great personalities.
Their new eco-home is a joy for them, but a touch harder for us.
And our camera here has all steamed up, which goes to show just how humid it is in here. I could do with taking a layer off, quite frankly.
Take 2, and we finally adjusted.
There was a lovely moment when I sort of said, are they going to move? And you said, Sally, they are moving, because one was opening its mouth. I mean, they're very slow, aren't they?
They really are. They do live life in the slow lane. We don't really know how long they can live, but something like 180, 200 years. So it's a very long time they spend doing things very slowly.
That was most apparent when they moved from their old building to this new one.
The tortoises walked so slowly that a journey that just took me 60 seconds took them an hour and a half. Isn't that lovely?
A healthy bribe or two did the trick, and according to Chris, they've had a fun start here.
The first sort of 36 hours, they caused quite a lot of damage to some of the plants as they tested which ones they like to eat and which ones they could crush out the way. So we had to kind of follow them and just find out which things they'd find to cause trouble with.
Visitors can't touch them, but apparently they quite like a good scratch. Who doesn't?
They do this thing where they close their eyes and stretch their neck and legs out and sort of hiss as they go up, like on a car jack, sort of a thing, and expose all the soft bits, and then you scratch that and it feels a bit like scratching an old leather armchair.
Wow.
But they really enjoy that.
The new centre opens tomorrow, giving the perfect opportunity to warm up and slow down. Sally Williams, ITV News, London Zoo.
Thank you, Sally. Just before we go, time to take a look at the latest episode of All Around Britain. This Sunday, Ria Hebden and Alex Beresford have been enjoying the emerging autumn colours.
This week on All Around Britain, we are joined by our dogs to explore the beautiful Westonbirt Arboretum in Gloucestershire.
We'll be discovering what makes it one of the most important plant collections in the world and play our part in creating something special for future visitors.
Plus, we'll find out how hugging a tree could be good for you.
Also on the show this week,
the man celebrating his 80th birthday in Hartlepool by revisiting his childhood in an unforgettable way.
Oh, it's amazing, fantastic, really. Yeah.
These are tights, aren't they?
These are
tights. We meet the self-proclaimed potty plotters, 2 women in Derby, passionate about helping people make the most of their allotments.
We're going to dangle that from anywhere where you keep your onions.
And we meet the team from Newport behind a new type of washing machine that's now helping people all over the world.
So join us, Ruby and Peaches on ITV at 11:55 this Sunday.
For another trip all around Britain.
And that is London this Friday evening. Stay with us. Charlene's got the evening news. But from all of us here, thank you for watching and have a lovely weekend. Bye-bye.